Maya, welcome to Erik Reviews. I had a chance to read the book that you recently came out with, Creative Machines, um, and I really enjoyed it. All about AI and its role in creativity and what it means for the future. And I thought it was pretty exciting stuff that I wanted to get into with you. But first of all, I was really impressed with your background and your credentials. I think both of them put you in a pretty nice position to write it. So can you talk a little about both of those?
About a decade ago, I switched research fields to focus on something called computational creativity, which was a teeny tiny research community of mostly Europeans, 300 of us tops, building machines that make art and music and write poetry and philosophizing about what that would mean for the world. Opened one of the earliest Gen AI startups in late 2017 in focusing on helping musicians express themselves with the aid of AI tools that we built specifically for that. And then end of 2022, the world shifts. And suddenly my teeny tiny little corner of the world, which I, by the way, was happy that it was small, blows up. And I honestly felt somewhat of an obligation to share a different point of view that's informed by a decade of work compared to the common narrative.
Yeah, so because you have a background in music and in poetry, right? You have a background in writing both those things, and so this was like taking it to the next level.
Yeah, so my company, Wave AI, was born out of my struggles with songwriting. So I studied opera singing in parallel to my PhD in computer science, and I really wanted to write my own songs, but I found it incredibly difficult despite a lot of effort. And the research, which then led to the company, was focused on helping me and then helping a lot of other people make up vocal melodies and eventually also lyrics.
Oh yeah. Now remind me the name of the lyric writing help that your
So,
company has.
yeah, that ended up being the most popular product. It's called Lyric Studio.
Your studio, right? Okay. So you referenced this a bit, but for those of us who are only half following what was going on in the A world or the AI world, what were the main events this century that led to the big explosion in 2022?
So, from my point of view, things have been brewing under the surface for decades. For decades, we've had machines making art and music, good art and good music back in the 80s, in some very specific contexts, right? Around 2016, you started seeing big companies start to gently dabble, not make enormous investments, but start releasing, things like Magenta at Google. OpenAI was doing its own really cool stuff as well. But then the real moment was the end of 2022, when Stability AI, which has now basically disappeared from conversation, promised to solve all of generative AI and raised $101 million in November of 2022. And as a result, woke up the investment world to AI right before the release of ChatGPT. So investors woke up before the general population did. And then they decided to, well, I don't want to say exclusively, but almost exclusively invest in Gen AI. And that really what shifted the tide so significantly.
Yeah, that surprised me because I had never heard of that. Like I knew ChatGPT, but I guess that's like the surface of the wave and not the underlying currents that was pushing the way forward.
I mean,
Uh,
Erik, it may well be the case that this could have all happened without stability, but I think it's really, really interesting that it happened after all the investors woke up to it.
let's see. So, backstory a bit. So, I'm trying to get this timeline. I remember being in college in the 2000s, and I remember the music professor there saying, "We have AI that can write songs in the style of Liszt or Mozart." And I thought at the time, like, that's absurd. If it's writing these great songs, like, why aren't they like popping up? Like, oh, Mozart just came out with another great piece. And so I was 90% sure that that was all ridiculous, but I wasn't completely sure, and it's been sticking in my mind ever since. So that's why one of the reasons why your book was so refreshing. It's like that old mystery that's been bugging me for years. But I was thinking about that in context of this timeline. So what was the? I mean, was it really? I mean, maybe was it a lie back in the early 2000s, but now it's a little, I mean, more reasonable? Like, what was the landscape back then?
I love that you're asking that because it really gets to the heart of the issue here historically. We assume that good music and good technology bubbles to the surface. That is simply not true. That is not how the world works. We have a whole bunch of human artists who are phenomenal, who are more talented than the famous people, with way fewer resources that nobody knows about. We kind of know that. We kind of sort of knows that about the world, right? We have talented writers that nobody really knows about, right? How good you can like how good the thing is that you create doesn't correlate well with how popular it is, right? Popularity is shaped mostly by money and power, right? By being in the right location, having the right connections, and or having the money to pour there, right? And so there was a system, for example, Amy, Experiments in Musical Intelligence by David Cope, whose music people could not distinguish from, Bach and Vivaldi in the 1980s. The system wouldn't come up with a wave file. It would come up with a composition, and the musicians would play it, and people could not tell the difference. They couldn't. It's called the discrimination test. And there was a whole bunch of other projects I can tell you about. There are projects right now on university websites that are sitting there for free, that are amazing, amazing tools. Nobody knows.
Yeah, that's true. And there is something about that selection bias. Like you take like a famous thing by Mozart, his funeral, the Requiem, that everyone knows or something. And my thought is like, well, why don't we get another one of those? But there is something about just a selection bias that this happens to enter the culture and other things happen to not, but it's not necessarily, because it's not as good or something. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like there's some randomness to it, just positional
Well,
convenience.
not exactly. Well, you're right. Also randomness. I shouldn't deny that. I think just to finish that one little thought, I would love to invite you and the audience to go and check it out. I have a link in my book to David Cope's Amy, to my favorite composition. But also, if you just go on YouTube and type Amy, EMI, David Cope, you can listen to some of these compositions. There's an album called Zodiac, and you can listen to it, and it's just great. It's just great. And this is back from the 80s. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
By
so
the way,
in fact, sorry.
sorry, side note on that, I went to YouTube to test it because you mentioned in the book, so I wanted to like see if I could tell the difference. I failed. So yeah, it's tricky.
We
Anyway,
all fail, yeah.
yeah,
But you're
you were
right also
saying.
that some things that are not very well funded do go viral, right? It does happen, right? The things that are kind of unintentional fame, but it's just very, very rare. That is the exception. Most things that are famous, like you name it, books, songs, movies, anything, have an enormous budget behind it. Products, technologies, anything that we're aware of is because millions and millions and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars went behind it to make everybody aware.
Okay, so this is maybe exposing a little ignorance on my part. Has something, a musical piece or a written piece of AI gone viral like a person writing it, or do you see that happening in the future?
Oh, by now, yeah, by now we've had quite a few. There was a whole kerfuffle about it about a year ago, or maybe even a little bit more, where they started imitating. So the first few incidents was with voice copying famous musicians. So that kind of started created a lot of waves. Those musicians pushed back really hard. But since then, what we've had right now is Suno, and Suno, we could talk about that company in more detail. But one thing that's for sure that they have phenomenal tech, and they're making it very easy for people to create great music. And some people have created like fake personas, like fake artists, and then
Huh.
they create that music for them. So that has gone viral as well. So by now we have quite a few modern examples of that, but not like so popular like Taylor Swift, right? So there's still room for growth there.
It's funny. There's still that ceiling to get through. Maybe one day.
Could happen, even that.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, I mean, if it gets more prevalent, you feel like it's just a matter of time before something clicks, you'd think.
It's getting there. It's getting there, which it has its light and very much its risk, its dark sides, its emotion.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to ask you a bit about the dangers of where things are headed with AI. One of the things that I found funny is in the past couple of months, I've read, yours was the third book on AI that I've read, and the other two were considerably less hopeful and optimistic about it. The first one was called "If Anyone Builds It, We All Die." And so the premise behind that was if you figure out if AI superintelligence is created, then it's going to live on its own, it's going to outsmart us, and it's going to kill us all because it won't have any need for us. A very open and shut case, which is an interesting theory and impossible to disprove, but um, I don't know. I feel like that's out there, the Terminator 2 Skynet sort of fear behind AI. And I know that's not exactly where your emphasis is, but what are your thoughts when people throw out a theory like that?
Okay, so this is a very, very common perspective, though the book that you're describing seems to be leaning into it particularly honestly and particularly openly, which is great, which is great. We should have it all out on the table. The idea that AI is going to become exactly like us and then better than us and kill us all has been reinforced in books and science fiction for decades. It's a very, very, very old idea. It has nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with what's actually out there, or at least very little. It's like on its own track, you know? This idea is on its own track. And what it does, it sort of tries to pattern match what is happening with that story. And then it finds a few points of overlap and says, that's it, the world is ending, it's over. This whole idea of AI as this godlike intelligence, a thing that's going to outsmart us, a thing that's going to have the same weaknesses as us in terms of heartlessness, in terms of desperate need for resources, in terms of willingness to kill off entire species, is very, very projective and is not based on what AI is actually doing. And another thing that it does remarkably well is it hides the problem. It's saying the AI is the problem. The AI is not the problem. The problem is that, this is like if you get one thing out of this whole show, this is probably it. The problem is that unbelievably greedy people operating within an unbelievably greedy system, people who are already ridiculously wealthy, are willing to do anything and everything to become even more wealthy. And so they took these beautiful machines that my colleagues and I and people in companies have been developing for ages, and they directed them to cause unemployment on purpose. They were talking about using AI to cause unemployment in February of 2023. February took them just over 2 months to figure out that path. And within our economic system, that's almost a rational behavior. You almost can't blame them, except you can. And so, yeah, it's not the AI. Stop this nonsense. We're not living in a movie. Those are people who took machines that could be applied in many different ways and are actively funding companies who are willing to direct that power to cause unemployment.
Mm. Yeah, see now that so I said I read two, and the second one was more on that point. Like the danger of AI is the people who wield it and use it, like you're saying. So, uh, yeah, and you talk about that a bit too in your book, those kinds of dangers. I was curious, getting back to creativity, what are the dangers for people in the creative space with the expansion of AI?
In a way, it mirrors many other spaces. Ironically, computer scientists are replacing themselves first. You know, I really shouldn't be laughing. It's such a serious issue, but there's something really ironic about it. That's a field. Computer programming used to be such a safe career path, and now it's one of the most at risk. There's already enormous cuts. One person could be as efficient as 10. It's been completely uprooted, and unfortunately, there's a similar path that might play out in the creative spaces, and it breaks my heart.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be like that. Like investors wanted me to replace musicians, so I could get many millions of dollars to build the tech that I wanted to build if I were willing to replace musicians, and I just couldn't. How do you reason in your head around something like that? It's absurd. So, no, we didn't do that. But other people were willing to, right? And so right now you're seeing that battle play out in lawsuits. So companies, the most well-funded companies in the creative spaces, there is this tension between investors and perhaps some founders wanting to replace creatives, and then the creative industry and existing companies in the creative industries fighting back. So that battle is taking place right now. And like with Spotify, you can have all the companies happy, but the creators unhappy. Because that's, I find, the biggest risk here. The companies will make sure that they're okay, but where is it going to leave creative people and human creativity? So I'm really displeased with the lack of humanity in the way that these beautiful tools are being misdirected, I guess.
But I think my overall takeaway from the book is that you are optimistic. Like the idea of using AI in with collaborating with creativity is an exciting thing. I think your enthusiasm came through in the pages for that. So, why is that? Like, why is it an exciting thing to be creative and do the thing that's at risk of killing creativity?
I mean, creativity is really cool, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We humans love creation, right? So we can say that that's what connects us to the divine. And even those who are, sworn atheists, which is also great, also tend to sort of consider that a really important part of being human. We love creating, It's what we do all the time. We make cities, right? We invent parallel universes. And we are able to talk across, massive spaces here. And AI can be just such an amazing amplifier of human creativity. Like it has allowed me to write music when I was struggling so badly, and it did it in a way that made me a permanently better musician. So after people use Lyric Studio, even if the internet goes off forever, there's never power ever again, they're better lyricists for having used Lyric Studio, right? So there is a way to do this that's genuinely, profoundly elevates people permanently. And that's what I love. I love what's possible and a little bit of what's happening. I don't love everything that's happening.
So there's Lyric Studio, which that helps a person with lyrics, writing lyrics, and then you mentioned is it Elisa for writing like the music, or
So the company had a bit of evolution. Alicia was sort of our first product, which tried to help you with everything, and it was sort of doing a little bit too much hand holding. And then we made Lyric Studio, and then we made Melody Studio. So the later products make sure that they're not hindering your creative process in any way. So if you're trying to help another person, let's say one of your friends wants to do their own podcast, right? You could be like, okay, Noah, get out of the way. Let's say that's your friend's name, right?
yeah.
I'm going to show you how to do a podcast. I'm going to set up your room. And this is just like, and I'll even do the interviews instead of you, right? You just like kick them out before they started. How a lot of AI systems work today. It's insane. Or you could actually help the person, right? You can make them more competent in this space. And that's what we need more of.
Yeah. Okay, so can you talk me through that a little? Like, what's the difference? Like, I can imagine sitting at a desk and trying to come up with lyrics in a song and like struggling through that. Like, what is it like doing it with the help of AI? Like, what are the kinds of prompts you get? What kind of inputs do you put in? Like, how does that work?
So prompt based is something that industry has been pushing really hard. Um, a lot of Gen AI for creativity was not prompt based before. Actually, I didn't really see it until it started getting really pushed by industry. So like Lyric Studio, for example, my tool where it's completely our own model, it's completely our own thing, beginning to end. You write your lyrics, and whenever you're stuck, whether it's in the beginning or the end, it gives you a whole bunch of ideas for the next line.
Mm. So,
And what happens?
sorry, so you have to start with something and then they use what you have.
Technically, you could use it for the first line as well if you need it as well, but it'll just give you ideas for the first line.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's what happens in reality that sometimes at first people do a lot of just clicking and just kind of quickly putting it together. But very fast, and also with more seasoned songwriters, they use it sparsely. They use it only as much as they need it. Sometimes you get one good line and you're like, yes, and then your brain just gets going. Sometimes you see a line, one word inspires you, and then you even end up changing that word, but it kept you moving. It
Mm.
avoided that writer's block. It avoided the slowdown. It kept you in flow. And sometimes you really fall in love with a line and that becomes your title, right? I mean, it's just like a million variations, but it's always in the background. It adjusts to your style. It doesn't try to be the star. It's about you and your story and what you're trying to express. And so it makes you into a better pen and paper lyricist down the line the more you use it.
Interesting. Man, by the way, I'm really curious because I do like writing songs and I also play the piano a lot. So as a side note, when you were talking about piano playing and how magical it is, like I was right there with you. Like that was great. And I also thought it was hilarious that you played a piano that didn't have an F above middle C. Like
Right?
that sounds terrible.
Right?
Oh man, who do you really enjoy as a piano composer?
Um, oh my goodness. There's like Chopin has one of his pieces is like one of my favorites to play. So it's just kind of randomly something that I learned as a kid. It was the most complicated piece that I learned when I was about 11 years old. and I was just so happy playing this Chopin piece. But the truth is that I really like art songs by unknown musicians as well, by kind of just stuff that people write. And for a long time now, ever since I learned how to improvise on the piano, I just sit down and make something up every time. That's my go-to these days.
Whoa, you can just sit down and make something up on the piano? That's what, wow.
Took me a long time, did not come easy, but yeah, that's my favorite way to play.
Wow. Um, how do you even get started on that? That blows my mind. Like as a piano player, like that blows my mind. That's amazing.
Eric, we just make up what we're going to say, right? And yet with piano, and with guitar players are taught to improvise. And for some reason, piano is just an instrument where you're supposed to play other people's ideas all the time. And it's not too bad. You kind of gotta, you start with some chords. You, take a chord progression, try something with the right hand, and at first it's all bumpy and lumpy and doesn't sound that great. And um, I had a little bit of guidance of a couple of teachers, and there's probably a ton more growth for me, but there are certain I have like a style that I can play within pretty well. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now because didn't AI help you in this improv on the piano?
It really did. My very first, so I've wanted to improvise forever. Like I wanted to write my own songs, I wanted to improvise, and it's just my brain wouldn't cooperate with me. And it was, I believe, 2018. I was at the International Conference on Computational Creativity, and my late colleague Robert Keller was there with his system, Impro-Visor, still available for free on the Harvey Mudd website. Um, and I would like riff a little bit and it would respond to me. And it doesn't matter if what I played was good or bad, it would sort of build on it and make it sound good. And I played with it for like 2 hours and I missed a whole bunch of talks. And it was such an amazing experience. And it really helped. It kind of started my journey. I could improvise much better after this kind of back and forth with it.
I wanted to read a section of your book that I was kind of curious about. So it's in a chapter where you're talking about what's going on behind the curtain with AI, and you talk about the creative cycle. So one, evaluate the next generation. So it produces a bunch and then it evaluates that generation. Select the
Genetic
fittest.
algorithms. Yeah.
Well, yes, right, right.
Genetic algorithms. Yeah.
hmm and then reproduce and then replace the old population. So you have this cycle of improvement. So and I'm not sure if I missed something, but how does AI evaluate a new generation? Like when you're talking about a creative space, like how can it say whether something is better or worse than another option?
Yeah. It's so cool that that's what you get curious about because the computational creativity research community considers evaluation to be probably the most important thing. Um,
Yeah,
so,
like yeah, or sorry, just yeah, that like because that to me that seems central to the whole idea of AI. Like you have a self-generative system so it can improve, which makes sense. Like if you're teaching it to play soccer or something, but like if you're writing music, like how do you even decide what the goal is?
that's right. And you are asking that in the context of genetic algorithms. That's where you got that piece from. But evaluation is also relevant in neural networks, like in a lot of different AI systems. It has relevance. We have evaluative mechanisms in our tools, and in different ways, the popular like LLMs and whatnot evaluate in all kind of spots. Um, so it's not possible to have a very concrete evaluation criteria without introducing some kind of bias, right? So originally, if you look kind of decades ago, people would just give it like a formula. They would try to quantify what makes a good melody, for example,
Mm.
or what makes a good poem, and they would just kind of like try to. You give it a poem and it gives you a score from 1 to 10, for example, and there's like millions of ways that you can do it, and people would just come up with their specific criteria, and that's what they would do, right? Now, of course, this has a lot of limitations because it's just a formula that somebody made up. Is it any good?
Yeah.
you know, Maybe a little bit good, but it's not great. So sometimes, kind of, another thing that people have tried, and in some ways, the current big LLMs have taken that to the next level, is to have human feedback. So imagine you're doing your genetic algorithm, you have your population, you're making like little like snippets of music, right? Somebody could sit there and listen to them, and then decide if that's good or bad. Still get biased, but maybe it's better than making up a formula ahead of time, right? But that's really slow. That's not preventing the LLM companies to have farms of people doing something related to that. But still, it's sort of ineffective. Then you can do like extrapolation. Like you could give a few examples that are good and then have a machine learning algorithm sort of extrapolate to what's good and what's higher quality and what's lower quality. It's a whole research field. I just wanted to give you three examples. So you have a little bit of human input, but then you have an algorithm that sort of learns from that human input what's good and what's bad. And then you have that machine learning algorithm can then be used, let's say, in that genetic algorithm to then decide if a population is good enough to stop or not.
Ah, okay, okay. So this would be something like you come up with random bits of music, you sample it to a group of people, and the machine learns that people generally like music that ends on the tonic key or something, and so favor that and get rid of the ones that end in some weird dissonant thing. Like, is that what you mean? Like you have those little rules and kind of go.
Well, but when you do it kind of with some human input and some and machine learning, the beautiful thing is that it can learn whatever those rules happen to be, it can pick them up, right? The programmer doesn't have to guess what those rules are, which makes it better. So yeah, you're exactly
Right.
exactly what you said. Yeah.
Ah, okay, okay. No, that's good. So. I guess in a way, it's the larger the population is, like if there were a trillion people on the Earth or something, it would be the best. It would be great for AI because there'd be so many people that it could get feedback from more constantly.
Yes.
Just, throwing out the science fiction thought out there.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we are food for the AI, right? Our thoughts and actions can be fed into the machine, become smarter. Kind of like we get smarter from each other as well, but that's maybe not as directly, and we can't consume as much volume at once.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. Well, we talked a bit about music. What about in the writing field? So I kind of prodded on the sense of if I'm a composer, this is what I could input and this is what it would output. What about for writers? What do you think is what can they use for? How can they use AI to improve the creative process in writing?
Well, I've learned a lot about writing from writing this book. When I was just getting started, I was like, I need to somehow use AI in the writing of this book, right? I mean, it's about AI. I have to.
Yeah.
And I tried and tried, and for 2 months I fought with ChatGPT, and it was useless. It was so bad. And it kept like taking my ideas and neutralizing them and making them more similar to common perspectives. The whole point of my writing is that it differs from common perspectives, right? So I finally took the basic advice from people, which is just sit there and like don't even edit, don't even fix typos, just write, just get your ideas on paper. And then I had 2 or 3 rounds of human editing. Okay. But then I circled back to the AI. And in my last round of editing, I used ChatGPT very, very heavily to critique me, to help me like rephrase. So I just spent like hours and hours battling against the machine, and it would give me really good feedback. I didn't agree with all the feedback, but it would like criticize the hell out of what I'm writing. Sorry. And
Oh.
it was really it was phenomenal at that for that phase. So that's my own experience. There are a lot of legitimate, like really cool processes that people figure out, but you have to stay in charge. You have to be in control.
That's an interesting. You start off with your own creativity, so you know it's yours, and then they can fix the mechanics of whatever. I think that makes sense. I've also heard of writers using it as like an outline. Like if you get stuck, like just type, like say, tell ChatGPT to give you, a dozen ideas about, some vague idea you have, which I'm always kind of curious about, but I've never seen it in action. But I assume that's another way to go. So,
I think when it comes to drafting content, like outlines or what to write about, it definitely can be used. But what it tends to do is it would tend towards the mean. It would tend towards common knowledge, common perspectives, the agreed upon status quo. So if what a person is trying to write, they want it to align with the status quo, that's a great approach. If they want it to be kind of as a contrast to status quo, then it's not helpful. At least not directly helpful.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so that brings up an interesting point about the limits of AI, because it is like taking the average of everyone's novel in a sense and putting it into, the midsection as opposed to like, let's branch off and find, this new style of writing. Is that fair to say, or are we
It's
getting
very fair. It's very fair with one tiny caveat.
okay?
Popular AI today.
Wait, what was
Popular
that?
AI. Popular AI today behaves like this because for different ways. But basically, all these companies found one vision for AI, and the one vision is to replace search. right? To be our all-knowing oracle that always says the truth, right? So they made it really safe, which in many ways a good thing, but they made it like safe as in like it's afraid to be wrong. It's like this paranoid thing that just gives you the most likely thing, most aligned with Western thought, you know. It doesn't want to upset you. If it learns something about you, it kind of adapts to what you're saying. There's absolutely no reason why AI should have this kind of persona. It absolutely can be the thing that takes you to new places and comes up with a writing style. And that's how us researchers have been thinking about it for decades. That's what Lyric Studio does. And there's so much more opportunity in that direction. So it's a choice.
Interesting. I did want to ask you what your thoughts are on the future, because just like I was kind of ignorant to the undercurrents of events in AI coming to the forefront of everyone's thought, like I bet I'm ignorant to a whole lot of things going on now that will lead to some cool things down the road, but I just don't know about them. So, what are those sorts of undercurrent things that you see happening now that could lead to someplace interesting?
Um, well, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. This one is the first one I'll start with is not a secret. There's a lot of interesting work happening in robotics, and people are predicting that the next 5 to 6 years there's going to be a big oh my God, edit this out. There's going to be a big growth in robotics, and people are expecting that household robotics are going to become much more commonplace. So kind of the integration of a lot of research in the background that has been supporting fine motor skills and all these different little things that a robot needs to be able to do to really kind of exist and be helpful within a household, along with the AI, is a really, really powerful combination. But it's not really a secret.
Mhm.
It's happening and it's been happening, but it's finally gonna probably have its kind of big proliferation moment. Um, but where I just can't help it. I feel like we have it's almost like you're digging for gold, you know. A lot of these, not all, but a lot of this progress is happening in California, and California is also where people found gold, right? So it's almost as if people found gold in one spot and then everybody rushed and they're all looking for gold in exactly the same area, right? They're all making like the same LLM, like 10 copies of the same thing. It's crazy, like little tiny differences. So I am hoping that we're going to more widely explore AI's capacity, that we're not all going to try to create that all-knowing oracle, that we're going to lean into the creative capacity of these systems to elevate people as well, kind of pay attention to the goal of what we're building as well. Believe in humans. Believe that it's worthwhile building systems to elevate us because we have more to offer. So there's a lot of stuff that where I see potential, where I don't see enough activity as well.
Hmm. So, what's your optimistic view then, like for when you talk about what you hope will AI will do to elevate humans? What kind of things do you have in mind?
Well, I think the best uses of AIs, well, they're kind of two extremes, right? So one is fairly established, is the AI that does our dishes and does our floors so we can spend more time doing fun things. That's really good as long as if it does too much, then we need universal income to sort of to change the way people eat in our house and whatnot. So that's kind of one side that's pretty well understood. Another side is kind of what does it even mean to be human? You know, like what gives meanings to our lives? And there's a lot of stuff, but in particular, being creative, expressing what's in our hearts, connecting with each other through art and music, sitting by the bonfire and singing a song that one of us made up. I think, well, I know that AI can be built to really, really elevate human capability, to help you express stuff within yourself that is otherwise hard to express. And I think, especially in a world where people wouldn't have to work as much, if we make the right social decisions, it'd be amazing to have people express themselves through art more because AI systems exist to help them do that.
Yeah. Oh man, I agree. I love the way you phrase that. And just so just out of curiosity, if you had to like take a guess for when mankind will be seriously impacted to that extent by AI, are you thinking like, are we looking ahead to like 50 years or 100 years or what kind of timeline do you see as most reasonable?
I think we're definitely talking within a decade, possibly
Oh.
within half a decade, because the amount of money getting poured into AI right now for replacing labor is enormous. The biggest hope, there are different ways that things can go well, but the greatest hope is that as that starts to happen, the social safety net becomes wider and actually gives people more freedom and less of this like our whole sense of ourselves surrounds around work and often around very long hours of work where we're working more than doing anything else. So there's a way to start breaking out of that, which is, it could be positive, but we would have to adjust our values as a society as well in order to go there. And then the part about building AI systems that elevate people, that's right there. That's right there. That's just a matter of, having a little bit more investment in that space and a little bit more belief in the fact that humans are not done evolving. It's worthwhile to build tools that dive deeper into human creativity instead of just trying to replace us and saying that we're obsolete.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. I think that's great. I hope you're right. Now I have to dig a little more into your thoughts on the future, just because I you have me a bit curious here. So, like right now, if you're writing a novel, there's ChatGPT. You can use it like in the way you use it to write this book. That we're kind of starting to get familiar with interacting with for improving the prose, improving the style, and all that. Um, what do you see as advancements specifically with creativity in the long run for like people who are born today? What will writing a book be like in 50 years or something?
The dystopian answer that people don't write anymore. Um, the most utopian answer is that I sort of going back to that, like, and God thought, and there it was. And again, not for religious reasons, but because it's, religion has an impact on how we think, whether we realize it or not, right? If
Right.
humans, like, if I could actually use AI as this thing that would help me realize ideas back in my mind. Sometimes I hear an orchestra in my head, and I don't know how to get it all out. I'm a decent musician, but I'm not good enough to write out all the instruments and even remember for very long the sound that came to me in a dream. If AI could help me do that, like help me, not replace me at all, like the opposite, help me like get out what's inside of me. People who do psychedelics see these insane images, and only the best artists are able to replicate them. What if AI could help those people capture the amazing visuals that they see? That is next level. That would take a lot of research, but I think it's possible. And I think ultimately, that's sort of like, that's a path we need to start going down.
Oh man, this is rich science fiction material. I love it. That's great. No, but really though, I love the imagery of the creation of the world relating to the creative process that we do in everyday life. Like there, it's interesting. Like there is a connection there. Well, you have me extremely curious about all these things, so that's awesome. Um, all right. Well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and it has been extremely fascinating. And I don't know if this was intended or not, but I feel a lot more hopeful about the future of humanity as a side consequence of this. So,
There is hope. Yeah, I invite people to check out Creative Machines, AI or Nuts on
yeah,
Amazon. Mhm.
creative machines.